Hello, this is Max Drake. Following on from the last video where we'd actually normalized all the data and we got it back into a file, we're now into a point where we can actually upload to the data to the DB. So there's a couple of ways that you can do this, and one that I actually got caught with. When you're using Python, there's MySQL connector, which I was using quite a lot to actually do some queries on the database, and I found it a really cool thing to use. But it wouldn't work when I was doing, I think this API, this particular one, it might work, but it'll only upload 4 columns of data. So any more than 4 columns, it breaks. So in the end, I actually ended up going across to SQLAlchemy, and so that's the library that I'm using to do the stuff. For a lot of the queries and things that I'm doing, even though there's more than 4 tables returned, the MySQL connector seems to work, but it just didn't want to push the data up there at the beginning. So you've got to make sure that the formatting is right, that all the headers are right and all of the columns are the same. So I want to demonstrate a couple of things just to show how finicky this can be, and it's really frustrating. Now, up until now, a lot of the things that I've done, you've seen me doing some things in individual sections like read CV out, and this one is just for one particular file. Oh, sorry, no, that's the whole file. So yeah, it's coming through. And you see for the when I was doing the API call, I was doing it for all 3 controllers. All of them are asking different things from each of their things, and they come through, and I can do it all in one file. Now, when I come to do the upload, I'm going to break this thing at the beginning here, and the way that I'm going to break it this time here is I've got a copy through here, and I'm going to put, and now actually I'm going to do, it's going to break straight away anyway. So let's just look at this. I'm going to run it in the first, and then I'll clean it, and then I'll do it again. So let's just demonstrate this one here. So I'm running this one here. It's going, first of all, it goes and reads the file that we actually have. It's saying what table we're going to. Now, in the URL or the connection that we're actually going to, it's asking for who the user is, so we've got to log on, what the password is, what host we're sending it to, and what database we're going to. Now, I've put that into this info_10 file over there so that you can't see what it is through here. It's my secret and it's not for you. So I've got it under that variable through there. So, and it's going to go into this table through here. Now, when I run this one, it's going to break. And so I'm just going to save, and I'm going to run it. Now, when it runs, you watch at the bottom, it's reading the data frame, it's coming through, it's doing it, and then it does this thing called, where are we? So it's actually reading all the data, let's get further down, sorry, get down further. It's reading the data in here, here we are, it's one of these ones through here. It does this thing called a rollback, and what it says, it goes to put it into the thing, but it gets all the script in the right way, pushes it in there, and then what it's actually said, look, we got an error in there, so it breaks, and it says that what it is, it's got duplicates in there. So the primary key already is in there. So in fact, the first 2. So here's that rollback. So what it's done is it's done the thing, and it's done this commit. So at this point in time, it's got all the data set up in the format that it requires, and it goes to try and put it into the table, and then it goes, oh bugger, it can't. So it does this rollback. So it's whoa. Let's pull back from all that. Then it kind of says where you've actually broken it through there. So that's what it's doing when it does that. So now we're going to go back through, and it's those first 2 lines that were already there. So if I delete those ones here, I'll do the next 2 lines through here. So this is the copy one. So if I save that one now if I upload it, this should just run like nicely. So if I run this one here, it's going, it's doing, I'm doing a print ahead. So it's printing the head, it's doing it, it's run it, and it's gone all the way through. Oh, wait a minute. No, it's got another error. Duplicate entry. So it broke the first one, but it seemed to put the next ones in there. So that's all right, don't really mind that. And I do find when it breaks, it does some interesting things. Sometimes it puts data in there, sometimes it doesn't. So if we go through and we get the original file and bring it through here, we know that the first 4 lines that we've actually done, so maybe it did actually put those ones in there. I'm not, what it breaks so that it doesn't do. So the first 4 lines are in there, so we'll take the next few lines up to there, copy, and we'll put them into here. Now this should work. In fact, I'm only going to put 2 lines in there at this point in time, and I'm just going to save that. I might actually just go back around and save it at the end of the line. And now I'm going to run this one, and it should run because that's clean data. So if we run that one there, we should get it. It's reading the head, doing that, doing the SQL, generating. It's bouncing out again. No, it shouldn't do that, because that should be new files. So let's try that then. I'll tell you what we can actually do at this point in time. We'll actually just dummy this up because it doesn't really know it's a database. It's tick. We do another date, so we know there's nothing in there for that one. So if we go and upload this to database here and go shift and run, I did a test on it and it worked perfectly. So it's just making a fool of me. There it's done the commit and then it's stopped. So when it's done that, it's got to this point here and then says, well, hey, we've done what we needed to do. And it's put it into the database. But you see those other ones, it does this rollback, but there's nothing that really comes up here. So what I've ended up doing was I've got this, and then what I've done is I've appended this send an email. So I've attached this thing here of sending an email on the back of this, and this one actually also has an attachment. So this particular email one, you can't write a body because it takes the attachment, which is the CSV file, and it makes that the body of the actual email, and then it sends an email through to me. So I end up attaching this at the end of that end of the update. So if it gets through all of this and it does it and it does the append and it says yes I'm right and it does the commit, it then goes through and sends you the email. And so if we just look at my emails through here, you'll see all of these ones here. This one's successful, this one's successful, this one's successful. So I do each particular, every time I'm uploading to one table, I do them individually. If I have to do all 3 together, you don't know which one broke, the first one, the second one, or the third one. All you know is that it never got to the point of sending the email. So by breaking them out into individual ones that upload to an individual table, if you get the email, then you know it's been uploaded. If you don't get the email, then you know that something's happened and you can go and investigate that, and you can identify which table it didn't go and push up to. Now that actually worked through there, so we're going to take a little bit more data down here. So we're going to take, oh, now we've done, well, let's just blow some of that data away. Well, let's just copy some of this stuff in the middle here. So we're going to copy some more stuff here. Now this is just how sort of subtle it is. Now I'll just make that, I could have actually just taken the other one and just gone 8, 8 and 8 on this one. Now, 8, gotta make sure it's an 8. Now if I go and put, we're just going to bang a couple more decimal points into this one here. So again, remember when we were looking at our SQL to database and coming in and looking at this, this says how many digits before and after it will accept inside there. So if there's more than the number of digits after the decimal point, it'll just suddenly saying, nah. So this is why the rounding and getting the right number of decimal points is quite important. Otherwise, the database can be a bit temperamental on these ones here. So if we just come back to this one here, and we'll go save onto there, come back into the upload one, and go and run that one, we should get a rollback. Nothing's happening. Go. There we go. So it's reading the head, going through, doing the stuff. Ah, it committed. So obviously it's letting me put that data in there, so I might have been messing with this table as well. You can get this problem occurring quite quickly though, you can. That one seemed to be working okay. So let's try putting another, actually that data. So let's just put this in under the 9th. That's an easy way of doing it. This is a dummy table that I'm using. I've made another database pretty much like the one that I've got, with some fields in the same tables, so that I can test these on them, because if it breaks, then I don't care. So on this one here, 96.66.222 and 54321, and we'll save that. And now we're going to run that one, so it's a 9th, so it should run. So let's just see what happens here. Control run. So we're getting the reading down here. It's doing it. It's selected the database. It's doing the stuff, and it seems to commit them all right. So for some unknown reason, it's doing those. Now it shouldn't. I've had a lot of troubles where it's been breaking on little trivial things like that, but I've obviously done something that maybe it's rounding in the database. But you can actually have something, and actually another little simple example of this. This is it. I'm making a fool of myself here. If I go L1P and go here and now try and run that one, no, that's been uploaded. So let's just go 10. Oh no, we'll just make it 2. 2. Save. And now if we run that one, that should break, because it's done a rollback because of one simple letter in the wrong thing in the header. Is it doesn't recognize that column, so therefore it said no, we don't have one of those, so we're just going to stop it. And this is the thing with these uploading to the thing. It's an all or nothing. It either puts it all there or ain't going to do anything for you. But sometimes it actually does that. It tries to put it in there, and so you get messy data because you don't know how much has gone in and how much not. So you've got a lot of the times I've actually just gone and cleaned the database out, cleaned out something, said okay, then everything after a certain date delete from that table, so that you know that you flush that out, and I'll actually load it again to make sure that it loaded properly and everything loaded as to where it does do. So as I said, one of the things that I do at the end, if it gets through all of these things and it works and it does this submit part or committed, it will then send the email. So that's a way that I can do it. So what we can do with that is that we can now concatenate all of these together, and I have another file here. Now I haven't altered it, so I can only show you the top bit here. In the top bit on this one here, what I actually do, and this is another thing that I've got to do, is I've got to run everything for yesterday. Now, this is something I just want to have a quick talk about. If we get a Unix timestamp at this point in time, my time zone is so let's just go into 000 and go to turn to human. Back something weird's happening with this. Oh no, we want to go 2 3. No, 2 2. So here we get the scenario where it's Monday, January the 9th here in New Zealand, and we're 13 hours ahead and we're in daylight saving. And back in GMT, it's yesterday. So if I suddenly saying, give me all the data for the 9th of January, it's going to say, but that's tomorrow, I've got no data for you, bugger off. So I can't ask for data on the day that I'm here, I've got to ask for the data from yesterday. So if you look at when we've done this overall, the first thing I'm doing is I'm getting yesterday, which is today minus time delta, days minus 1 equals 1. So I'm just getting yesterday, which is the day before. So since today is date.today. This is a little bit of the messing around that we're doing in here to make sure that when we make the call, that we're getting the whole 24 hours worth. If we were to suddenly saying, okay, then, and after a certain period of time, let's say that goes to 3, and now we just convert that into a thing. Now you see it's Monday the 9th of January. Now it's 2 o'clock in the morning there, and it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon here. So I could suddenly saying, give me today, and they're suddenly saying, oh, today, but I can only give you 2 hours, and then that's all I've got. Poof, no more, because there's no more that's actually come in that has been reset back to GMT. Now this is a funny thing that you do. So one of the things that I'm doing is when I make the calls, what I'm doing is I've set it up on the server, so I run some scripts. So what I've got is I'm using Task Scheduler. So inside Task Schedule we can create a task. So if we create a task, we can say call API. Now I want to call the API in the afternoon here after 1 o'clock. So that's 13 hours time difference, which is the biggest maximum difference between here and UK. Sometimes we get it matched, so there's a 12-hour difference, and sometimes they're in summer daylight saving and we're not, so there's an 11-hour difference. But the worst case scenario is 13 hours difference. So what we want to do is make sure we call in the afternoon, and then when we call for yesterday, we know that we're going to get a full 24 hours. It sounds confusing, but you'll have to work it out yourself. So what we need to do is we want to make an action. So the action that we can do, and this is something I just want to highlight. In the old time, you could send an email or display a message, but those are both depreciated. The only thing you can do is start a program. You don't know whether it started or not. So this is the thing of whether the actual functions has occurred, unless you open the task manager and you do you can do a refresh, and you can actually have it to show a log, so you can see what's actually happened and whether a program is actually running. Like you see this one here is running a log on of user or whatever. So at this point in time we want to start a program. Now the program which we run is Python. So we want to go and find where our python.exe file is and put that in here. So we're going to run Python, and then we're going to add the argument is the script that we're running. So the script that we want to run for this one is this 6 upload to DB. Ouch. So that's the script.py. So that's the script that we actually want to run inside of the task manager. And we put that in here. So we just put the name of the script, and then we put the folder of where that script is located. And then that's what it will do. It then start that program. So we end up with that start program, and then we said, what triggers do we want? Now if we look at the triggers, we can do it on a schedule, at log on, at startup, on idle, when somebody's picking their nose, and all of these things. Basically we want to do it daily, and we want it to run every day, and we want it to run in the afternoon, most probably after 1 p.m. So 1 p.m. if the time is on my time in New Zealand, if this is synchronized to it. So this is actually set up on my computer here. My server's actually in Germany, but I've actually got my server running on New Zealand time. So that's a bit confusing as well. So every day it's just going to trigger is exactly the same time and do that. Now, the way that I've got that, so that's the way that you set those triggers up to actually occur. Now the trigger, and it happens, and it doesn't tell you anything at the end of it. That's why I have those emails that just send to say that they're finished. So when I set this up on the server so that it can actually run, all of the things, the one where it goes and gets the API, the one where it converts it and reads the JSON and spits out the CSV, the one which re-indexes everything, I compile all of that into one big script. But I don't add the upload to the DB at the end. I do that as a separate one. So I compile all of those, and when they all finish, I've got a little email script which actually just takes a copy of that file and sends it to the people in the team so that they've got access to the CSV file that we're going to upload. And then I actually do 3 separate ones for each of the 3 controllers. And so each one, you know that they've got 3 separate ones, so you know that each one is run or it hasn't run. And so that's why I've got those emails through here, which only saying this one's successful, this one's successful, this one's successful. and those ones there. I've actually got some other ones which I'm running as well, which are doing. So I've got a whole load that do that and just signal that certain things are actually happening. So I bunch those things up, and so these ones are dependent. The last three of doing each of the individual uploads are dependent on the first one happening. So they've got to happen afterwards. So I most probably leave 10 minutes or something like that, and then I start doing each of the other ones. And since they usually only take a short time, they're only punching 24 lines in. You can kind of do them maybe 5 minutes apart, or maybe even a minute apart if you wanted to push it. But I just sort of leave it loose enough. It's not critical how long it actually takes. So I've got one of them that starts at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It takes an hour. The other one takes an hour, and it's not because it's doing a lot of work. It's got to do long pauses, and I'll explain that in a different video. But it happens at 2. So this one starts at about 2:30, and then the other ones do about 2:45 and 2:50 and 2:55 or something like that. So all of these are finished by 3 o'clock, and then I'm expecting those emails to come in when they come in. So that's how I've set up that part of the process to work. Now, another funny thing is as well, because I'm running from here, I don't know if I got this in here. No, so let's go back to that one there. When we actually put this information in, so the URL that we're sending it to is the host where we've actually got our server running, and it's also got our password, and it's got our username, and it's got which database we're actually sticking it in. We're doing it to a remote host because the host is somewhere else. But when we're running this script on the server, the database is on the same PC as such, or it's on the same server. So it's actually only doing it to a local host. So it doesn't need this different URL. It's actually sending it, so it'll be the one there will be something like 127.0.0.1 or something, and that's where it is for the link to the database to where it's going. So that's just another little funny thing. You're actually fixing some code up, you bring it over onto your PC, and then you forget to switch back to the fact that you're not sending it to a remote server, that you're sending it to a local server. So there's a couple of little quirks on that just doing, but. I'll test this out quite a lot, especially when I've got different ones with different headers, and especially if I've got to tweak the headers so that they don't match, so that when I cross query. So this is where I actually find using the report is very good, because you can do a cross query and see if there's any conflicts through here. Now, another little particular nag of mine is, as a designer, doing construction jobs and things like that, as an architect, you're communicating with a whole lot of people. You've got the other design teams that you've got the client, you've got quantitative surveyors and all of those, and you've got your project managers, you've got your main contractor, all the subcontractors and things like that. And the number of times there's been miscommunication, it's just so frustrating. So a particular rant of mine, and then the other thing is I'm a freelance a lot of the time, so I'll work to a certain part of the project and then I get up and leave. And I've got to make sure that all of the information that I've got is accessible. So a lot of the notes that I put on drawings tend to be a little bit more verbose, just to explain what it's doing, and why it's there, and what it's doing. People start to say, "Oh, I don't think you need that." You're saying, "Yes, you do," and doing it. So accessing information to me is absolutely crucial. It's something which I see so many cock-ups happening, and it's not because people are not intelligent or something. It's just that some person didn't communicate, or somebody didn't have access to the right information at the right time. So this is one of the things which I quite like about Google Data Studio. I've suddenly started to load all of this data up into the database. Now, at the same time, I'm sending a CSV for every day of all of the API calls across to the client. So they got it in an email format, and they got each CSV for each particular one. But say they want a certain bunch of stuff. Now, if you've got something like a report through here, and I suddenly think, well, actually, I want data from the 1st of May through to the 29th of October, and go apply. Now, you'll see this chart up the top here, and he's going from September. Oh, he's got some weird, he's going back, he's doing some weird stuff through here. I've got some September, October, September, June, and doing weird stuff. I don't know what's happening here. But if you look down here, you will see there is lots of rows, except May. I know that's actually not doing it in. I think somewhere you can do it so that it orders it somewhere. But anyway, there's certain data in there that you can get. One of the things that you can do in here is you can click on here and you can export to a CSV or to a CSV Excel or to the Google Sheets, and we'll call it untitled page 1. And it will export not just this little bit here, it will export all 4,092 rows. So if we just go and open that up now, they've got the access for that. So what I'm actually doing, as well as actually building the pushing the stuff up to the database, I'm also making sure that the team can access that information. So I'm making a whole lot of reports. These are not the ones, this is just a demo one that I've just set up to demonstrate this, is that I can actually set up all the column headers on the each of the tables, such that they can go in and download that data, and they can say, oh, I want the data from here to here, what's in the database, boom, and they can drop it. And so if they want to do a cross-thing query or something like that, maybe I'll set one up in the background behind for the Google Data Studio, or I'll do the query and then make a table with the result of that query in there that would demonstrate that, so that they can actually get that information. So that way, even though it's doing a database and they don't know how to do SQL queries or anything of that, they may see some stuff displayed on images or part of the dashboard and things like that, but they can actually download the raw data themselves. And at this point in the project, I'm sort of running to keep up. Now, another thing that I'd say, just by cobbling all of these things together, one on top of the other, in some ways not necessarily the best way to have written that code, but it works. So as long as it doesn't work, it works and it's not broke, then stick with it. But the thing is that I'm sort of running to keep up. The capturing of the data is at the very, very minimum that I have to do. We're then starting to analyze that data and process that data. Now, I'm just doing the capturing and getting the data accessible to other people. How they want to display that and how they want to interrogate that data, they're still finding out that they've got this data that they can start exploring. So they don't quite know what questions to ask. So I can't actually do cross-table queries and this and that and the other in SQL to actually present them with that information. They've got to actually just get some of the raw data, play with it and say, can you get this to do this, or match this one against that one, against those dates there, that I can actually write some queries. But they can also play with the data themselves and do those things. So what I'm doing is making sure they have the information, then they can get to that information in a timely manner, that if they wanted to ask those questions, they've got the raw data to actually build up from. And they can do those sorts of things in Excel. Not as sophisticated as what you can actually do with an SQL query and stuff, but they can get part of the way there. Then they can actually start suddenly saying, we want to see this, or we want to describe this, we want to do this. So I'm sort of jumping between this and trying to do things further down line on what I'm doing, is what happens if you get a cross query or this and that and the other. Or another thing that I'm doing is doing a heat map of all of the different types of plants that they're putting in different locations and in the rooms as to where they're growing, so that we can look at each planting cycle as they go through, and as they grow through and as they grow, that we can actually look and have a heat map to see what types of plants were in what locations and which ones are most effective and where they are, or whether there's a particular cold spot and maybe some in a certain corner of the room don't grow as well, or maybe that would be better for plants that actually like a little bit, that don't like it quite as hot and that sort of thing. So so I want to do a heat map with that, and then I want to be able to have different buttons on that so that you can switch between all of the different planting cycles, and then you can also hover over each one and get information about that particular plant that is in that particular location. And so over time, hopefully, we're starting to generate certain characteristics of things that are actually happening in certain places, or with certain plants, or other things that are happening as far as the environmental things. So I'm trying to create visualizations that can work. You know, one thing that I was asked for is, once we got this, they wanted to actually have two graphs, one above the other, one that would look at one season, like in the middle of winter, and one which would look in the middle of summer. And then there's look at the different temperatures that was actually happening with the outside and inside temperatures, and then looking at plant growth for certain things, the ones in the historical things like that. So they can start doing comparative stuff and suddenly saying, oh, look at this, maybe we should actually heat it up a bit here, or maybe cool that one down a bit because they seem to be growing more stronger stems or things like that when it's in a slightly colder weather. So just kind of getting them hot and getting them growing really fast weakens these things off. So you can start doing different things on it, but they're not able to tell me what questions they want to ask because they don't know what the data can actually help sort of clean out. So to me, the only thing that I can actually do at this point in time is actually give them information to do that. At this point in time, that's about as far as I actually want to talk about on this particular process through here, because most of it has actually been using Python to actually do a whole lot of the work that we're doing through here. And I'm really wrapped how this goes. I've been really pleased at how much I can actually achieve. But I actually found that I was spending so much time on the minutiae of, not quite having the right data frame, or getting the JSON file in the right format so that it worked and would go into the next step and all of those sorts of things. So those are all the little fiddly things. When you actually see somebody says, oh, this is how you do a request to an API, and they have this dead simple one, and you say, yeah, but mine aren't that simple. I want to add all of these other little variations in there. I want to be able to come into here and have a different item through here, or have a different start point and end point, and do all of these things. So how do I do all of those? So it took me a long time to figure out how I could put these variables inside this string of inside a string really, and to get it all to work, and especially the times and stuff. It could be it was very time consuming. So I'm very, very pleased, and I'm actually quite amazed at just how powerful Python is for doing all of these things. So thank you very much for watching this series. I will be doing another lot on the second API, and there's a lot more complications with that because there's a lot more restrictions on how that is, and I want to go through how I manage those. And in fact, there were opportunities in there that I couldn't actually use in these ones here, but I didn't actually have to be as efficient in this one, but I did on the other one. So I hope you found that of interest. I will put most of this code out there. Again, I won't be giving you my API keys or any of the controllers or any of that sort of stuff or things. Oh, sorry, the other thing that I did want to talk about is sending emails. Now, when you're automating emails, a lot of the times it said, no, I couldn't send the email, couldn't send the email, couldn't send the email. Inside of Gmail, you've actually got to go and set up a different password for when you automate. So you don't use your normal Gmail password, you use a different one, and you've got to set it up in a certain way. And there's 3 or 4 videos out there. So this is why in the end I used a Gmail account to do this, because once you set it up, it was so simple and so easy, and it was a pleasure to use. And it was such a frustration that I've had with trying to automate doing emails from a lot of other things which I play within auto hotkeys and other stuff that I've done. These ones, this particular video, and I'll put a link in, is really useful for doing that. As I said, the email that I've got is one that actually has an attachment. Because the attachment is put inside the body, you can't write a body text in there. There are other email templates that just have an email and then you just put a normal body in and put your normal blurb in. But because I wanted the attachment of what I was trying to put up into the database, or what I wanted to give to the client so that they've got a copy of that CSV every single day, so that they've got a different access to that information as well, it's just ensuring that they're covered on having all the data that's being created or being accessed, retrieved and brought forward, that they've got those. So there's several alternative ways that they can do things. So overall, it's successful. It works. All of this works very nicely. I'm monitoring it on a daily basis. One of them gave me a hiccup, and I might talk about that in the second one as to what I'm doing. But this covers a lot of messy things. And I found that the date and the date type was a real challenge, and I spent an awful lot of time on that. And it's once you get it right, it's a wonder to behold. Until you get it right, it's a frustration to behold. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I hope that's been of use to you. I'll wind up all of these. I'll put them in a zip file, and hopefully I'll put a link in most of the videos that I've done in these steps so that you can actually access the whole lot and just unzip them and use them. Thank you very much for watching.